Welcome to the podcast. This is our
Welcome.
first episode 0.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so Thulie and I decided that we're going to do a podcast. And why did we decide to do this podcast?
Well, it's pretty much in like the spur of everything that's going on around the world, namely South Africa. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I feel like there were certain events that kind of just sparked conversation with our friendship group specifically. That kind of had us being like, you know what, we actually need to speak about it, but also not just speak about it. Like, what can we do that's a little bit more than just talking? Because everyone's talking.
Yeah, I found myself like, the reason why I'm here is I found myself deleting Twitter. And I was asking myself, why am I deleting Twitter? There's a lot of discussions going on Twitter. It's a way to find out what's happening in the world. And when I questioned that, I found out the reason why is because there's a lot of people putting noise out there and not a lot of action.
True.
And I think it, like on Twitter, we see these problems that we're facing, but we don't see many. We see people talking about them. We see people bringing them up, but we don't see a lot of action to sorting out these issues. There's nothing real that's really happening that I see online. And obviously these are problems that affect all of us and problems that I feel like we all have a responsibility to solve.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, so I'm deleting Twitter because I'm tired of seeing people just talking and complaining about these problems. I should be doing something about it.
True.
You know?
True.
And Thulie, we like had a discussion about this. Legit had a discussion about it and came to the conclusion that, you know what? We've got a podcasting studio available to us. What can we do in our lives? We can make a podcast.
Exactly.
That's why we're here.
Exactly. So, yeah, the hope is that you guys, the audience, will see more of us. But yeah, do you maybe want to tell them what the plans for the podcast is?
Yeah, okay. So definitely. It's literally the whole premise of this podcast is to spark change in people. And the first people we can start with is ourselves.
Straight up.
So we're asking the question, what can we do to solve issues, not just talk about them? What can we do to actually spark real life action? First step that we came across as being the solution to that is starting a podcast, speaking about it and trying to spark action in other people. We're hoping that real life action and solutions can be figured out from this podcast. And hopefully we can spark real life actions and solutions in everyone listening.
True.
So yeah, do you want to give an idea of like what kind of things we're planning on talking about? Kind of signposting them, or maybe even talking about what we're planning on the first episode being?
Straight up.
Yeah.
So like I said,
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I think what might be more important is that we explain who we are. Before we get into what's coming, who are we and why are you watching this right now? Why should you listen to us?
Who even are these guys, bro?
Who are these dudes?
All right. Yeah, so I think I'll just start. I'm Thulie. I went to school with Josh. And we have a friendship group of people where I feel like, we kind of build each other up, and a lot of my characters pretty much come from the interactions that I've had with these people. How was I brought up? Like, in a nutshell, I was brought up in a fairly stable home. I've developed opinions and ideas that I feel like maybe quite a lot of people would agree on. You know what I'm saying? But in a lot of my opinions and ideas that I have and questions, some of them might come across as me being kind of ignorant towards a certain topic, which is kind of the reason why we also started this podcast, is to kind of, I think I'm trying to not give away the name in like what I'm trying to say, but like just to link, one person's perspective and somebody that is, I don't know, more closely related to the issue that we'd be covering, which also goes into what the podcast is pretty much for, is to cover like different issues that our country namely faces. But I think from my sense, I don't think I'd be too far off to say that the type of person that I'm is kind of representative of the people that want to do good, but the people that also want to know how they can help.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Figure out solutions, you know.
Exactly.
I think that's like a big theme of this podcast. Yeah, so just to go into my background as well, Thulie did mention our friendship group and how we went to school together was very much a part of us formulating our opinions and our perspective on life.
True.
And I don't know about you, but when I left school, that's when I started to realize that my perspective was very limited. Going into varsity and speaking to other people, being exposed to other people from different backgrounds, you realize how formulated your opinion is dependent on like what school you're in and the people that are in that school, and also what you taught, you know.
True.
When you leave that place, you sort of broaden to a lot more perspective. So I think like having that happen and realizing that, you kind of realize that nothing's actually right, you know.
Exactly.
What you thought was the absolute truth and what was right, you start to realize that was actually just your truth, and that was something that was right to you.
Straight
and
up.
that there's other truths out there that are right to other people. But it's a matter of identifying the fact that what you know may be true to you, but may not be true to another person, but then engaging with that person that it may not be true with, and finding a middle ground and bridging the two opinions and finding a place in the middle where you can both be at peace what other people think and also utilize other people's opinions to form your own opinion.
Exactly.
Definitely something that I think we've all learned as a friendship group.
True.
And it comes through in our discussions.
Exactly.
Because like we've gone out there and we've experienced certain things, and the way we've thought about things have changed, but we always come back together and discuss these things.
Exactly.
You know? Like, and Thulie was alluding to a certain topic that we had amongst ourselves that we that led to us starting this podcast. And that topic is going to be the first episode of the podcast. So this is episode 0, just explaining to you who we are, what we're doing. We're not professionals at this, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I know this is Thulie's first time.
Straight up.
I've done some other podcasts, so I have a little bit more experience. But we hope that you guys will be here, a part of our journey. And we also want you to also be a part of the conversation. So what we're planning on doing is constructing a podcast that allows people to listen live. So we will be live streaming the podcast. But not only that, we also want to give people that are listening live the opportunity to participate in the conversation. So the two main streams that we're looking at utilizing to do that is Discord and Zoom. So for the first episode, we will make sure that anyone who wants to listen or anyone that would like to add their voice to the conversation is able to do so. And we will be posting out how exactly you would be able to do that later down the line. But we wanted to just shoot something now just to explain what we're doing and to try and just make people aware of what our intentions are. I mean, I think our intention is to learn.
Exactly.
To learn and to figure out what we can do to add, to have a positive impact on South Africa. And not only like that, but also like speak from the perspective of the youth in South Africa. There's not much perspective from the youth in terms of discussions on important issues, from what I've seen. So yeah, and I think we have a unique perspective as well, eh?
That's true. That's true.
We have a very unique group.
Yeah, I think it also just spurs from the whole, because I don't think a lot of people, especially, a lot of youth in our country, grew up the same way we did, in the sense of going to a private school, let alone a Christian private school. And, the ideologies that you kind of form when growing up, being in that kind of environment, kind of puts you in this fairly unique spot.
Yeah.
Versus, a lot of other people, or the majority of people. And, but I think also at the end of the day, just because of the type of people that we are and our personalities and our characters that kind of lend us to be the type of people that always just want to know what's going on, just being curious or speaking to people. I think mixing our background with other people's background kind of just it forms this interesting conglomerate of a situation where it's like, okay, so here's these people that think in this type of way, and they bring that forward, and it always, I guess, clashes with what so many people think.
That was the problem I was trying to highlight with Twitter.
Yeah,
So like with Twitter, there's two different conflicting sides, but there's never a discourse between the two sides that results in any sort of outcome.
exactly.
And I think that's what our generation is missing a little bit, is we come from a certain perspective and we believe in and we know it's right, but we never often really have discussions with people from the other side of the spectrum and consider what they're saying and using that to formulate a new opinion that has taken what other people are saying and considered that
True.
and use that to formulate a new opinion. And that's a dangerous place to be in, because you can have your opinion and you can be rallied up by a lot of people who have the same opinion. But what makes an opinion right and what makes an opinion strong is when it stands up in the face of being challenged. And
True.
I feel like our generation doesn't challenge each other enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's like something we want to do in this podcast, is challenge our opinions, test our opinions, and also challenge the opinions of others.
Yeah. And I think also one thing that we'd like to kind of get across as an overall message, or maybe you'll see that it's a constant that happens throughout the podcast, is that like a lot of the times, most of the time, maybe even all the time, we're going to have people, contributing to the podcast, for example, and there are going to be opinions that clash. But the difference here and the space that we're trying to create is that your opinion does have the opportunity to be heard.
Yeah.
Like just because it's not in line with what I have to say, I'm not immediately going to shut it down.
Or the popular opinion.
Exactly.
Like, I think a lot of people are scared of sharing their opinions because they don't go along with the popular opinion. And nowadays, with cancel culture, it's a bit risky to do that. The barrier to sharing your opinion is a lot higher because you have to put a lot more on the chopping block.
True.
In terms of your career and your social standing, that you kind of steer away from sharing your opinion because you're worried or nervous or have a fear that if you share your opinion, that it's going to be trampled on and it's going to affect other parts of your life negatively. And that's a dangerous place to be in, because then you never really learn anything.
Exactly.
Because you're not talking about the things you need to learn about. If the case is that you have an ignorant opinion and you never want to share it or test it against anything because you're scared, your opinion will never become unignorant. I don't even know if that's a phrase, but it will never become informed because you won't have the opportunity to inform that opinion because no one will be able to teach you. And it's all about learning from each other at the end of the day. But yeah, I think we've done like a good summary on what you're trying to do here.
Yeah,
I feel like this could be an entire podcast.
Hey, straight up. Episode 0.
Episode 0. This is the beginning of hopefully a long and interesting journey.
Exactly. No, that's the plan. I don't know if you've missed out on anything.
We're probably going to watch this back and be like, yo, we missed out on that. Because
True.
we're learning,
True.
But yeah, it's a learning process.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Like, a lot of these podcasts that a lot of people watch, it's always like, I feel like it's always the case where you find the people already with like 2, 3, 4 years experience in doing the thing. I think with us, like the viewer base that we build will get to see us grow.
From the beginning.
Exactly, in a sense, grow with us, And I feel like,
and the opinions grow too.
Exactly.
And way of thinking.
In doing that, it just goes to show that we're normal people.
Yeah.
Which means anybody could do either this or just do something. You don't have to have, I don't know, access to, huge amounts of money or whatever,
podcasting studios.
Exactly. You don't have to do a podcast. That's not what we're saying. But
we all have access to different things.
Exactly. Whatever you have access to, just, use it.
Yeah.
Use it, do something with it so that one day you can look back and point at something and be like, that's the change that I made. And I think that's what we're trying to get across versus just, sending a hashtag. Because I think a lot of what we're going to discuss in the podcast is going to be very, based around a lot of these different hashtags, be it, gender-based violence, racism, poverty, crime,
police brutality.
But, it's all well and good to, share the hashtag and kind of build that awareness.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, now that you know about it, what are you going to do? Do you just go back to what you were doing before you saw the hashtag. And I think that it should be a thing of, where you see something and we should be at a point now where we're motivated to, act and do something. Because I feel like what I'm trying to hammer home, what I'm saying is that we are the generation that's going to actually have to make the change and kind of break off all of the just kind of like everything that's followed our history, from the past, and it's trickled down through the generations, like racism, inequality, sexism, like all of these things that have just followed down the generations. And it seems like it's just getting worse. Like the next generation that it impacts always seems to be worse off than the previous. So I think for us to, finally abolish it, we're going to have to maybe make the biggest stand as a generation, like in history, to kind of break this thing off. Obviously, these things take time. It's not going to be a matter of shooting one episode and boom, all your problems are solved.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you do need to start.
How do we as the youth, as a collective, find solutions to these problems?
Exactly.
We've identified one of the problems as people talking about things and not putting in much action behind the words. And naturally, the first thing we thought to do was how can we put in action? And we decided we have access to a podcasting studio sponsored by JD Creations.
Boom.
Just put in the little plug. But yeah, so we decided to utilize this platform and to create this platform and grow this platform to hopefully inspire the same thing in other people. And I think that kind of summarizes what we're talking about. So yeah, here's to episode 0.
Here's to episode 0, man.
You can see where this goes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Sensational.